everybody. We're back with another university segment. I'm here with students from Northwestern University who are part of the Northwestern University blockchain group, a club on campus. We're here to find out what's going on with blockchain in Chicago or the Midwest in general. Let's go to Gilbert. He's the president of the club.
Hi. So we found an uptick in the amount of classes that we have at Northwestern focusing on blockchain and cryptocurrency. We've noticed that we have one class at the Kellogg School of Management that talks about different ways that blockchain technologies can be used in industry. We also have a class in the electrical engineering department that talks about the theoretical background behind how blockchain works. Outside of Northwestern, we've seen a large uptick in Chicago-based meetups like the Chicago Ethereum Meetup group, which is having more consistent events ever since we have had to start remote activities. Additionally, we have also had more collaboration between blockchain clubs in the Chicago area. Particularly in 2019, we had the Chicago University Blockchain Summit, which brought in a lot of different speakers from the industry to help expose students and young professionals to blockchain.
Yeah, and so MouseBelt supported that event, and I know that you guys were wanting to have an academic blockchain event that was more welcoming to students. And I did love to see all of the collaboration across campus. That's kind of the mission of MouseBelt University. We wanted to collect all of these different blockchain clubs and provide a space for them to share ideas and to grow. Tell me a little bit more about that event. Like, what was the specific focus, and you know, what was successful about it?
Yeah, so we really wanted to expose students not just to the speculative nature of blockchain, but more on bringing value to the community and the industry at large. And so we tried to make the event less focused so on like betting money on Ethereum or Bitcoin going up, and more so on getting people interested in the interdisciplinary nature of blockchain projects. And we had I think we had a good turnout in with regards to that. We had we represented a lot of different groups, some from venture capital firms, also from research organizations, as well as different industry names like IBM. And so we were able to get all those people in a room and expose students to the idea that blockchain is more than just being able to buy Bitcoin and earn money off of it, and get them more invested into the technology itself. So I think it was a large success because it was just great for networking opportunities. You were able to talk to all these great heads of industry right after they had their panels and activities.
Awesome. So I'm curious, I'd love to hear from the other members of your club on the call. Maybe you guys can introduce yourself and tell me what is one thing you're seeing about maybe a particular unique thing about blockchain in the Midwest or in Chicago or at your school that might be a regional thing. Rushman.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm Rushman. I'm kind of the enterprise blockchain chair of the Northwestern Blockchain Group. So I really want to build on what Gilberto was saying earlier in regards to blockchain being a very interdisciplinary platform that has potential to revitalize a lot of industries. And that's really what we've tried to cultivate on Northwestern's campus, and also kind of a push that we have started to see kind of throughout Chicago and the Midwest as a whole is this greater emphasis on enterprise blockchain applications and trying to understand how blockchain can be used as a method of streamlining a lot of processes, right? So to that extent, as a club and as a student organization, we really worked to create programs that teach our members actionable skills. So we have one subgroup within our club that's focused on learning programming and how to build smart contracts using the Solidity platform, which is, again, something that's very transferable outside of just Bitcoin and crypto into like real enterprise blockchain work. Beyond that, everyone here on this call is actually part of a research group. So kind of our goal there is to evaluate a variety of decentralized applications that are kind of on the market now and try to understand whether the use case that these decentralized applications supposedly have is really actionable and is going to lead to change in certain industries. So what we're working on now, for a little bit of context, is evaluating a particular decentralized application called Colony, which is kind of a way to build smarter, more efficient and streamlined organizations, and trying to see if Colony has any potential in streamlining clinical research organizations in the healthcare space. So we're kind of doing an evaluative piece on that particular decentralized application. And we have the great fortune of having a mentor that works at IBM that's kind of able to guide us through how these top firms are thinking about these decentralized applications.
That's great to hear. I think we're seeing the same thing on the accelerator side and the development side. We have, 50 engineers that develop the projects that we invest in through our portfolio, but we also have a lot of conversations with enterprise, and it seems like a lot of them have innovation teams and they have like blockchain leads, and they're all kind of investigating how they can use blockchain to improve their processes and reduce error and all of that. So I think it's really exciting. We have a ton of those contacts coming onto the conference. So I hope you will all tune in and listen to executives from Boeing, Coca-Cola, talking about supply chain and food and bev. So it's going to be a lot of exciting conversations there. Tony, why don't you introduce yourself, and maybe you can tell me a little bit more about this research group that you're a part of.
Hi, I'm Tony from I'm a member of the research team in our blockchain group. So what we're doing is like we focus on a specific decentralized application called Colony. And then one thing we're exploring is that like how this specific dApp is applied to the healthcare industry. So I think in this project, like although we find some limitation about the Colony, I think one thing I learned in this research group is that the decentralized application is really making some improvement over time. So I think, for example, in our case, the Colony, it just updates the white paper and also add 2 new functionality to it. So I think despite the fact that compared with other software in the industry, like the decentralized application might have some limitation. I think in the future, there will be more mature decentralized application that will be like widely used in the industry, like in the healthcare.
Awesome, thanks for that. And Soong, I just wanted you to be able to jump in here as well. Anything that you're seeing as far as unique to what's going on at Northwestern or in Chicago or the Midwest in general with blockchain?
Thank you for that. I think here at Northwestern University, as well as the greater Chicago area, what we're interested in and what we're seeing as well is an uptick in enthusiasm for blockchain technologies. And here in our research group, what we're doing here, looking through the client data management process, where oftentimes there's a lot of paperwork, inefficient and costly. And through Colony and through our research endeavors, what we're trying to do is optimize the process using this organizational blockchain. And I have to admit, the very first part, I think the goal of our mission at Research Group is not just to spend, but rather to invest and consider growing the future for other entrepreneurs in blockchain, in both technology and people. And when we develop this infrastructure in our research group and we really look through the processes, it can be difficult at times, but I can ascertain that there is very much great fervor for the blockchain community in coders, interdisciplinary workers, in our mentor. And I'm very much looking forward to working with my colleagues in the Chicago area, maybe even University of Chicago, whom I most despise, but that's just a small personal matter.
There's some rivalry going on there between Northwestern and University of Chicago.
Oh, good heavens, no, just cooperation.
Personal.
Oh, heavens, no, no.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I mean, University of Chicago is a great school. Probably like One of the top. I come from
Mhm.
philosophy background, so I know they're like probably one of the top in the US for philosophy. But speaking of, so thought it might be interesting to hear all of you tell us how you got into blockchain. So I come from academia. I have a master's degree in philosophy, but I've been building startups in Silicon Valley with the rest of the team at MouseBelt. And because of my expertise in working with students and in administrative capacities at universities as well, when the team turned to blockchain and they wanted to start accelerating project, they tapped me to come back on and build a university program to try to help student entrepreneurs and developers really dive into this and get the right support. So that's kind of how I got into it. But what about you guys? We can start with Rushman again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my background is a little bit non-traditional. So I'm actually a pre-med student here at Northwestern. And I think what really interested me in blockchain is that it has a lot of potential to completely change industries that I think right now people see as completely unrelated to blockchain, right? So if you look specifically to the medical space and you look to pharmaceutical companies, you look to biotechnology companies, there are so many potential applications in contact tracing, in drug supply chains, in collecting data for clinical management using blockchain processes that could really disrupt the way that the medical industry is built now and could really influence the way the medical industry functions going in the future. So I kind of saw blockchain as a really valuable way for me to learn a little bit more about how technology is going to disrupt kind of the industry that I'm hoping to work in the future. And that's largely why I got involved with this group and this community.
I think that's an excellent point about why people should care about blockchain, or why people should at least like dip their toes into any emerging technology is don't you want to understand how and be prepared for how different technological advancements are going to disrupt your industry, yeah, so that you can just be better prepared, be a better entrepreneur, all of those things. Gilbert, why don't you tell us how you got into blockchain and how you became the president of this club?
Yeah, for sure. So I honestly stumbled onto the president position. One of my first interactions with the club was actually attending the Cubs conference in 2019. And so after a day of just getting exposed to the industry, I was really hooked. So I started coming to more meetings, and eventually the conversation turned to, okay, who's going to be doing what next year? And I was like, okay, I'm really interested now. I think I can take on this role. And that's kind of how I became president. But what really got me to that conference that day was in the early 2010s, I had heard a lot about Bitcoin being compared to gold and being digital gold. And I was pretty confused as to like how can a computer just create like monetary value out of like what seemed to be nothing. And so that automation is kind of like I didn't really understand how it worked, but kind of continuing to think about that, I really got interested, and I started thinking about, okay, how can we extend this past just a ledger of financial transactions? What else can we use with this automation to help the public good?
Awesome. How about you, Tony? How'd you get into blockchain?
So I got into the blockchain because I took a freshman seminar at Northwestern. So that seminar is cryptology. And then we talk about like the Bitcoin and then decentralization of the internet in that seminar. So after that, I'm like, it's really fascinating to see like how the decentralized application potentially like protect individual privacy in the internet. So after that, I just signed up the club. And then I'm really excited to explore more in blockchain.
And how about you, Sung?
Well, you look at the reason himself now. Gilberto Guadiana is the reason why I got into blockchain. I myself am a civil engineering major, so my specialty is in construction management. And I thought to myself, there is no way some weird cryptocurrency can be matched with my career pathway. But as a matter of fact, Gil and I were just talking over dinner one night. He brings up the subject of smart contracts after talking about communist China and whatnot. And we went here, I was just fascinated how we can bypass, pesky third parties like lawyers. I interned at a law firm myself, so I myself am personally aware of how annoying and expensive those legal attorneys can become. And so if somehow in the future we can somehow integrate blockchain, especially smart contract technology on a massive scale, not only can I finally wipe the sneer off those lawyers, but more so we can improve the efficiency and operations cost such that things can be a lot more quick in the construction industry firm where so much of a holdup is due to pesky laws and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, a student project that we gave a grant to and worked with a bit, we're building an Oracle, a decentralized Oracle to like report back information. But basically they were building civic tech that could, prove whether a contractor was paid out, whether a certain government employee, fulfilled their contract. So, and I also used to work in a law firm, went into philosophy, potentially to go into law. So yeah, it's really interesting, the potential, and the amount of automation and the reduction of middlemen and human error that blockchain has the potential for. So great. We got everybody's shout outs, kind of what's going on in Chicago and Northwestern and, how you got into blockchain. So maybe just quickly go in turn and talk a little bit about, or maybe just Gilbert as the president of the club wants to go about a little bit, how are you rethinking blockchain or rethinking the rest of your year, reimagining? How are you reimagining 2020? I know, especially with school being canceled and meetings being different, we've had students who turned completely virtual, took their conferences virtual in a matter of weeks. So we're just really enjoying hearing how people are reimagining the rest of this year, how you think it'll go, what do you think is going to happen after the happening? Anyone who wants to chime in, I'll start with Gilbert for now.
Yeah, for sure. So right now our club personally has moved on to fully remote. So we've maintained our current projects we've continued our current projects from the past, and we've maintained weekly meetings. I think one thing that's definitely going to change is now that our meetings are fully remote, we'll be able to reach out to more industry contacts and invite them to our online calls. So that's going to be great for us to build more network connections and get more involved with the industry itself. Additionally, I think one thing that blockchain clubs need to reimagine is how to actually get new prospective people interested into their clubs. Like marketing efforts are definitely going to need to change, especially since you don't have a club organization fair that you can just go to and advertise your club in. I think, this year, I think we're going to see, like Rushman mentioned, more industry applications. So probably consultant services like IBM or other companies may create blockchain solutions that can be applied to the internal systems of companies. So I think we'll see an uptick in that this year.
Definitely. Anybody else? How are you reimagining 2020?
Yeah, I mean, in line with what Gilbert said, I think we're going to start seeing the adoption of blockchain technology and smart contracts into industries where no one had probably expected them to go into. So I think really that's what 2020 is going to be about. And I think with COVID-19, we've started to kind of see that there might be some places that could benefit from some of the blockchain technology that's on the market. I know one thing I've heard a lot about is contact tracing, right? If you could quickly figure out, right, where disease was spreading, who had been in contact with whom, you could really bring pandemics like the one we're going through now under control very, very quickly. So it's those kinds of applications that I think maybe the world is starting to think about a little bit more strongly. And I think those kinds of applications are really going to start to see the light of day in this coming year.
Yeah, I think that something I've been thinking about is how people are going to be more and more interested in sharing their personal private health data with people. Like they're going to want to be able to prove immunity. They're going to want to be able to share that with strangers and doctors. So and as someone who has experienced a lot of the healthcare system, I have, you know, some personal things that have happened in my life where I've had to interact with hospitals and doctors and insurance companies. And I've always thought, like, even just paying copays and stuff, you know, why isn't there just a simple user interface where I can go in and give permission for someone to have my health records? And I think it's really an identity solution, right? I need to be able to prove that I am who I say I am, and I'm giving permission to release certain kinds of data. So I definitely think it's a huge application in healthcare for blockchain. We actually have a representative from Consensus Health who just did an interview today. So anyone who's interested in healthcare applications of blockchain, I hope you'll tune into his talk, Alex Kahana. And looking forward to being able to air all of your responses and let you guys report back to hopefully, you know, a couple thousands of people, you know, what's going on with you, and highlight your projects. Any other shout outs you want to give, or anything we want the world to know from you? Plug your Bitcoin address.
I think just one final word to remark is that even though in this tragedy there's going to be a massive fallout in our GDP, as well as just probably decrease in the quality of life, and though we're not sure about the future, what I can confidently say, however, is that this, despite the losses that we're going to experience as a society, this is also kind of present an opportunity for blockchain to really get into the mainframe, and hopefully we can improve the common good for all men and women in society as we advance to a post-COVID society as well.
Absolutely. And I love to hear that from all of the, I feel like people in the blockchain industry, the students I talk to, are just so positive and optimistic. You know, we have to temper that with the gravity of the situation, but as, you know, serial entrepreneurs, we're ready to take this challenge. And, you know, we've already pivoted to this virtual conference, doing whatever we can with what we have to continue connecting, continue innovating, make sure we're able to meet the right people, so that we can build our projects and make the world a better place. So thank you guys so much for hopping on this check-in call.
You're tuned in to Reimagine 2020. Stay tuned to learn more about the state-of-the-art in blockchain education and technological development all around the world. Reimagine 2020.